In this tutorial, I'm going to introduce you guys to layers. So our layers panel is actually one of the most important panels, I feel, in Illustrator. So if your layers panel is not open, you simply need to go up to Windows and go down to Layers and make sure that that's selected. Once you have your layers panel, you can either leave it over with your other panels or you can drag it out. Usually when you open a brand new document in Illustrator, you will just have layer 1. Now I'm going to go through some of the settings in your layers panels and how layers work. So when you just have one layer with nothing on it, you'll notice that there's only a couple icons. We have create new layer or create new sublayer. So a sublayer is a layer within a layer, and then a new layer is a brand new layer. Usually the new layer places it wherever you're at. So if we just have these layers, the outside layers, and you click new layer, it'll be layer 2. If you click sublayer, it'll be a sublayer underneath that layer. But see how I still have that sublayer highlighted? If I have a sublayer highlighted and then click new layer, it'll create a new sublayer. So you have to be careful of that when you're working. So when you're working with layers, if, for instance, I wanted a new main layer, not a sublayer, and I accidentally created a sublayer, all I would have to do is click and drag it out. And then it'll become a main layer and not a sublayer anymore. So for our layers, you'll notice that on the left side here we have eyes, then there's a blank box, a color, and then normally there's nothing here unless you have a sublayer. Then there's the image icon, the name of the layer, and then these little circles here. Down here we have a few different icons, but because we don't have anything on the layers, they're not lit up. So I'm going to draw some basic shapes so we can kind of see some things that are going on here. So I'm going to create a few shapes. Oops. Okay. So now that I have three different boxes, you'll notice that in my layers panel, all of my icons are blank except for layer 4. So layer 4 has all three of these icons, these little rectangles on it. One thing I like to do is I like to name my layers so I'm never confused. Right now all three rectangles are on layer 4, but let's say I want a rectangle on each layer. Let's say I want this pink rectangle on layer 1. The easiest way to move this pink rectangle from layer 4 to layer 1 is by selecting it. And then you see this little blue square shows up. That little blue square indicates what you have selected. So if I have just one item selected, it's a small blue square. If I have everything selected, it's a large blue square. If you want to quickly select everything in the layer, you click this little circle, and then it will click everything in that layer. So if I select the pink rectangle, and I click and drag this little blue square down to layer 1, it now places that shape on layer 1. If I want this blue rectangle on layer 2, I'll do the same thing. That way I don't have to recreate new layers or draw new icons. I just move them around. So now I have layer 1, layer 2, layer 4. Because if you remember, I had a sublayer, layer 3 here, which we're not using right now. Now I like to name my layers. The easiest way to name your layers is you just double click and then type. So pink, blue, orange. This way it makes it really easy for you to tell what is each one. Now, right now it's very easy for us to see orange, blue, and pink. But when you're working with a lot of items and icons and images and shapes in a layer, the image becomes more zoomed out, so it's really difficult to see exactly what it is. So for instance, if I make a copy, make another copy, and move this over, you'll start to see the icon gets really small, and it's actually hard to tell what it is. But when we move it closer, it's easier to see the icon here. That's why it's really important to name your layers. Now these little arrows allow you to drop down, and we can see rectangle 1, 2, and 3 right here. The one that I have selected is the one on the center one. As I select them, you'll see that little blue icon changes. Once again, if you want to select this top one, see which one it is, you just click that circle. The next little thing is you see these little different colors. We have light blue, orange, and then dark blue. These are actually the colors of the layers. So when I select this pink box, you'll notice the bounding box, which is that box that goes around it, is light blue. When I select this blue one, it's orange. And when I select these orange ones, it's a darker blue. This little color right here tells you what color each layer is. The more you create, the more colors there are. Over time, the colors will start to repeat. So as you can see, if I create something in layer 8, it will be gray. So if I take this orange box that is blue outline and I move it to layer 8, it now has a gray outline. If I move it to 7, it now has a yellow outline. So it's just a quick way for you to tell which layer it's on. Now this empty box here allows you to lock each layer. All you have to simply do is click it, and then it's now locked. What the locking does is it doesn't allow you to grab that shape. You can't move it. You can't do anything with it. I can grab all the other shapes and move them around, but not that one because it's locked. The next icon is these little eyeballs. If you click on it, it actually turns that layer off. Sometimes this is helpful if you're designing and you want to get something out of your way. You can just turn off that layer real quick without actually deleting it. I use this to do different versions of artwork. I'll put some art on one layer, turn it off, do art on the next layer, turn it off, and then I can actually have versions 1, 2, and 3 just by turning on and off layers without having to actually delete work or anything like that. Now you'll notice some new icons have popped up. So some new icons will pop up as you select these different layers. I'm going to go over the most important ones, or the ones I find the most useful. So we have our create sublayers, which I've kind of shown you already, the create new layer, and the delete selection. Now, if you just click the create new layer, it's going to create a new layer. However, if you click on a layer like this blue rectangle and you drag it down to the create new layer, you'll notice how your little hand changes with the plus sign, and you drop it, it actually makes a copy. So now you have blue and blue copy, and if you select it, you'll see that they're stacked on top of each other. So this is really helpful. So I like to make lots of copies of layers very quickly if I'm trying to duplicate work, things like that. Obviously you can click on a rectangular shape, hold down Alt, and make a copy. That keeps the copy on the same layer. What's nice about this is when I make a copy, it copies the entire layer and the objects on it. So it's completely separate. So it's just a nice little feature. This also, the trash can, there's a couple ways you can use it. If you have a layer selected and you click the trash can, it'll ask you if you want to delete the artwork. Yes. Or you can click and drag to the trash can. Now clicking and dragging to the trash can is really nice because that little pop-up doesn't show up if you want to delete, so it's a little bit faster way. There are some settings here for like new layers, new sublayers, duplicate, delete, which are some of your same things here. Make or isolate, enter isolation mode, templates, flatten artwork. These do a few different things. We don't use a lot of them. See, outline others. For the most part, for beginners and if you're getting into Illustrator, you really just want to know the function of layers, and then these more advanced settings you can get into at a later date, but most of them are rarely used. Unlocking all layers or outlining others or hide others is kind of nice, but most of these things are used in the actual icons here or by double clicking to go into an isolation mode. Flattening artwork will take an object that you have and it will actually compress all of the layers down into one. So it might work with this one even though there's nothing on there. There you go. So it's literally flattened all of our shapes and it got rid of kind of the extra ones. So now everything's on one layer and you have your sub layers. So it's pretty simple, kind of cleans it up. Almost like grouping, but it's a little bit more permanent. Usually with grouping, you can select this, move it around, and you can right click and ungroup, but this was flattened, so it's a little bit different than grouping. So that's it for layers for right now. Hopefully this helps get you started on all of your projects in Illustrator. Thanks for watching.